A significant shift has just taken place within the WNBA, one that could have immediate consequences for Caitlin Clark this season. What we're witnessing is the collapse of a long-standing internal illusion, one that had quietly taken root inside locker rooms across the league. For months, a confident and deeply entrenched group of veteran players believed they had orchestrated a calculated power move behind the scenes. They leaned heavily on media influence, strategically shaping narratives and launching coordinated public pressure campaigns against league leadership. Their expectation? That the new collective bargaining agreement would trigger the removal of Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. But their entire strategy unraveled, completely, decisively, and beyond repair. Welcome back to the channel. Here, we don't entertain polished narratives or carefully curated headlines. We focus on the hard truths, financial leverage, salary cap realities, and the unforgiving nature of executive decision-making in professional sports. Right now, I need your full attention. Because ownership groups, backed by billions, have just made it clear who truly controls the ecosystem. Casual fans and mainstream media often misunderstand how these structures operate. They hear complaints from players like Nafisa Collier and assume ownership will respond emotionally. But that's not how this works. Multi-million-dollar contracts are not handed out based on sentiment. And leadership decisions are not made to satisfy frustration within a locker room.
40th year, actually this month in business. Never been a quitter, never shied away from tough situations. I think leadership, the cream always rises to the top, and I've always been someone who believes in the fact that if there's things we need to fix, we're going to fix them.
Pay close attention to the raw institutional muscle packed into that endorsement. When Kathy Engelbert openly declares she has no intention of stepping down and fully anticipates continuing her role as commissioner, the debate effectively ends. With a single, surgically crafted public statement, she neutralized the WNBA Players Union's entire opposition campaign. She reframed her disputed leadership as a proven financial triumph. That move systematically dismantles whatever internal pressure the veteran establishment had built. These were players who marched onto national platforms to publicly question her leadership ability. They staked their professional credibility on removing her from office. And they walked away with nothing. Engelbert now occupies the most fortified position of her tenure. Her authority over league operations is absolute and unchallenged. In the cold, transactional arena of corporate power, failed uprisings rarely go unpunished. Executives who survive political challenges tend to respond with quiet, methodical consequences. But the real danger here isn't what Engelbert does to her critics. The deeper threat targets the financial foundation of the entire league. The true casualty of this power struggle may well be Caitlin Clark, the sport's most valuable economic asset. Let's redirect our focus to the deeply political reality of WNBA officiating. Last season, referees operated under what appeared to be a deliberate containment approach. They consistently allowed veteran players to physically impose themselves on Clark without consequence. Whistles went silent as she absorbed hit after hit. It was a well-documented pattern of institutional tolerance toward aggression directed at the league's most marketable player. The media framed it as a rookie learning curve. Seasoned observers recognized it as something far more calculated. Engelbert watched the most powerful revenue driver in women's sports take punishment on live television, and intervened with nothing. Now that her position is fully secured by Adam Silver's backing, what possible incentive does she have to change course?
Beyond 2026. He said, I haven't had those discussions yet with the WNBA board. I would only say Kathy has done a fantastic job since she's come to the WNBA. All right. He also said, we obviously see the result.
Take a moment to fully absorb what that endorsement actually represents. Adam Silver sits at the top of the NBA's power structure. His public validation of Engelbert's financial record effectively dissolved the union's media offensive and removed any remaining negotiating leverage the players held. Engelbert no longer needs to pacify her workforce or overhaul officiating standards to preserve her job. If the veteran players who oppose Caitlin Clark choose to continue their physical targeting campaign this season, the commissioner holds every option, including simply doing nothing. That is institutional negligence in its most dangerous form. However, there is one enormous financial variable that Engelbert appears to be severely underestimating. The individual billionaire ownership groups are deploying serious capital based directly on Clark's continued physical availability. These are not passive investors. They are writing massive checks with the assumption that she takes the court and stays on it.
Because you're allowing the moneymaker to get hurt, i.e. the Atlanta Dream is bringing 5 can't-miss games to State Farm Arena. Y'all know they play in a gym that hold enough people for a backyard cookout. So they are moving games to the big boy gym, State Farm Arena.
Examine the economic logic of what that venue decision actually reveals. The Atlanta Dream normally operate out of a small, low-capacity arena that barely registers on the league's financial radar. But the moment Indiana Fever games appear on the schedule, everything transforms. Atlanta's front office relocates entirely, moving into State Farm Arena, the 18,000-seat home of the NBA's Atlanta Hawks, for the sole purpose of capitalizing on Caitlin Clark's presence. Run the numbers on that decision. Concession and merchandise revenue scales dramatically. Local broadcasting deals multiply in value. Clark's effect on that market injects millions in direct liquidity into Atlanta's operation. But that entire financial structure balances on a single condition: Clark must be healthy and on the floor. Consider what happens if an opposing player delivers an unchecked aggressive foul in early May. A serious injury, one that a properly enforced officiating standard might have prevented, unravels the entire model. Atlanta is left paying premium rent on a stadium hosting a game that no longer has a draw. An 18,000-seat arena sitting mostly empty for a mid-season regular season matchup is a financial catastrophe. This is precisely why the ownership class needs to override Engelbert. Venture capital does not absorb avoidable losses. These investors will not allow a poorly regulated officiating environment to erode their arena-level returns. Ownership must impose a firm, non-negotiable standard of player protection. A multi-billion-dollar sports enterprise cannot function on compromised officiating. And this urgency is compounding as the league undergoes its most dramatic restructuring in its history. The era of protected rosters and comfortable continuity is finished. We are entering the most turbulent and consequential period of organizational upheaval the WNBA has ever produced.
Here it says the expansion draft will consist of 2 rounds in snake draft format. Existing 13 WNBA teams will protect 5 players. Lists are due Sunday, March 29th. So we will know very shortly.
Consider the weight of what the April 3rd expansion draft actually demands. Every general manager across the league is under enormous pressure. League rules require each front office to protect exactly 5 roster players and expose everyone else to expansion franchise selection. Indiana's front office faces this reality head-on. Caitlin Clark gets protected immediately, without debate. Aaliyah Boston, their interior defensive cornerstone, follows. But the decisions become painful from there. How do they handle Kelsey Mitchell, a high-value unrestricted free agent? What about perimeter contributors like Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham? The math does not allow everyone to stay. Indiana will lose meaningful rotation pieces before a single preseason game tips off. The expansion franchises in Portland and Toronto are approaching this with clean salary sheets and aggressive acquisition mandates. They are positioned to absorb exactly the kind of talent Indiana cannot afford to shield. The Fever are heading into arguably the most treacherous offseason in franchise history, surrounded by well-funded competitors, operating under a newly elevated $7 million salary cap, and depending on an officiating structure that has already shown willingness to leave Clark unprotected. The margin for error is essentially zero. One miscalculated protection decision collapses the championship timeline. One season of unchecked physicality toward Clark undermines the NBA venue strategy entirely. This is the unforgiving new architecture of WNBA business. Thank you for being here on WNBA Pro, where we cut through the noise and examine what the numbers actually say. No front office narratives. No comfortable corporate spin. Just the hard, honest analysis of what's driving this league forward and what threatens to derail it. If that kind of straight, data-driven coverage is what you're looking for, subscribe now and join the most informed audience in basketball media. Drop a like to push this analysis further through the algorithm. And share your take in the comments. Will ownership step in and force Engelbert to protect Clark from unchecked physical targeting? Or will the commissioner's inaction ultimately hollow out the NBA arena bookings? And who does Indiana sacrifice in the expansion draft? Give me your best reasoned predictions below. I'll see you in the next breakdown. The corporate restructuring is already underway, and the window to understand it clearly is closing fast.